This is Eric Hovland, curator and shark guy at the Florida Aquarium, and welcome to C-SPAN. And thank you to our partner CIBC for sponsoring C-SPAN. You can't have C-SPAN without C. So we're going to meet Cletus today. And in fact, I'm going to call for our divers right now to splash in and do an enrichment dive with Cletus. If you haven't met Cletus yet, you're in for a treat. All right, radio on, because radio silence when we're doing live, right? Here we go. Boo, boo, boo. Hey, Cletus and friends, are you guys ready to splash and do an enrichment dive for C-SPAN? All right, copy that. We'll see you in the water in just a sec. Let's go right around the curve here. Here we are in the Bays and Beaches Gallery at the Florida Aquarium, and well, I bet you can figure out which one is Cletus. Cletus is our Goliath grouper, and the Goliath grouper that I've been proud to know the entire time of the Florida Aquarium. That is, I've been here as long as he has, and that's over 25 years now. In fact, we just celebrated our 25th anniversary yesterday. No fooling, even though this is April Fool's, I'm going to tell you some facts about this big, beautiful fish. Now you can see our divers are getting into the water there. That orange circle is going to come into play in a little bit, but let's learn about Cletus first. Cletus is a Goliath grouper. This is a fish that's native to Florida, Gulf coastal waters, and the east coast of Florida, all the way on up to the Carolinas and further, depending on the temperature. Cletus knows his divers are in the water right now, and Cletus is about 250 pounds soaking wet. In fact, I've known Cletus since he was about the size of a watermelon. I held him in my own arms 25 years ago when he came here to the Florida Aquarium. Now that's Hannah getting into the water right there, and she has placed a target. That's the orange disc that you see down there near the sand into the water. What is a target, you say? Well, a target's something you aim for, and we're going to watch Cletus do just that. He has been conditioned to know that if he approaches that orange disc and sits right in front of it, fun stuff's going to happen. And it's a long learning process between our biologists, Alyssa and Hannah here. And there you go. A little bit of the sand offering is happening. This is an enrichment dive. Enrichment is all about caring for our animals, making their environment fantastic and fulfilling and safe and frankly fun. What's going to happen here now is watch Cletus as he approaches the disc. We're going to complete that behavior when he gets in range nice and close. But that's right, a little spa treatment, a little bit of a sand bath. Brushing that sand over the body of groupers is beneficial, and you know what? It looks like it feels pretty good. As Cletus normally as a Goliath grouper would probably want to keep to himself. Something like big divers like this might look like another big fish that might offer competition, and that's why over weeks and months we introduce ourselves to our wildlife here at the Florida Aquarium, diving in a position like this and feeling them out, getting an idea of their behaviors, and understanding their body language. Since so far, not so good. We haven't learned to talk to the groupers yet, but we can understand them. And we do watch their body language, and in fact, groupers can make some sounds, and when Cletus makes a sound, it's a big one. You will hear a boom, and that means, hey, you know what, so much, get out of my territory, in that's how he might let another rival grouper know, this is my zone. One of the things about Goliath groupers is they like to have security. Groupers in general like to have a little den or a cubby to hang out in, a little cubby hole. And that's why the bridge environment here is a very natural environment for a grouper even at this size. We're going to watch a little bit here. Now all those other fish you see there are brown chromis and then a school of spadefish going by. They look like angelfish. They're actually a type of batfish that you can also find over in the Indo-Pacific if you look at different species in that same family. Yeah, once again, the sand trickling over the body of the grouper, it has an interesting stimulating effect, maybe relaxing, calming. Sometimes you'll see our Goliath grouper Cletus even open his mouth nice and wide, and that's a behavior they might do if they're at a cleaning station out in the wild. So we're starting to wonder if perhaps the sand sprinkling on the body kind of feels like the cleaning action of smaller fish, for instance, the neon gobies that are known for cleaning and grooming all kinds of fish out in the ocean. Let's see what Cletus is up to next. Sand baths are just one of the ways that we enrich our Goliath grouper. Some of it's actually the company of the divers just being in the water. The more and more he got used to the divers and realized that good things were coming with the divers in the water, the more comfortable he became. Kind of comes out of his shell, out of maybe just tucking over to the sides where he'd be out of sight, and it makes for a better experience for our guests that want to get to know Cletus too. So here he comes right up front and center. This is also a great opportunity for our animal health professionals like our veterinarian to come down here on the dry side and get some really good angles on our Goliath grouper to check his health. You can do a visual exam without ever getting wet. Our vets will get into the water with our Goliath grouper from time to time if they do need to do more of a tactile or hands-on procedure with the grouper. But again, conditioning him to be comfortable around divers. Whoa, there you go. You saw a little bit of a pop with his jaw there. He might be communicating something, maybe even to the spadefish to say, look out, coming through. Once again, though, when our Goliath is right up front like this, it gives our animal care professionals an even better opportunity to give him an oral exam. Look right in that big gaping maw of his, that big mouth. Make sure that his gills are healthy and red, and that he is enjoying his environment. Right now, he's doing some laps. All of this conditioning, all this work with our groupers and all of our animals at the aquarium takes a lot of patience. If you're ever considering getting into a profession with animal care, you better have patience by the bucket load, because it really does take time and effort to get to know our animals and do it on their level, on their terms. It's always voluntary. And if the Goliath grouper, Cletus here, for example, maybe gives indication with a body shimmy or a pop that he's had enough, then we'll go ahead and wrap the dive. We'll call it good for that day. Let's look at some of the other apparatus in here. Those blue tubes that you see there, they're not just tubes, but they lead to air stations and that will create bubbles. Bubbles that our Goliath grouper likes to bask in. Again, it may stimulate the gills, be refreshing, maybe have even the effect of replicating the cleaning fish you might see out in the wild, or maybe just feels good. We're still learning every day with our animals and from our animals. There's Alyssa there putting a little bit of sand in front of the target. See if we can get Cletus to come on in. Now, I mentioned Cletus is about 250 pounds. That's a big fish. In fact, one of the biggest fish you'll see here at the Florida Aquarium, right up there with the size of our larger sand tiger sharks. However, he is not done growing. When he came to us, he was 38 pounds. I remember the day like it was yesterday. It was yesterday, 25 years ago yesterday. And that said, well, maybe a little earlier than that, because he came in about January. And of course, our animals, when they come in, they go through a quarantine procedure to make sure they're healthy. I think we all know that word by now, quarantine, but we've been practicing quarantine with our animals at the aquarium for decades. It's how we ensure that they're safe and healthy before they mix in with other animals. So stay at home works for fish too, until they get to meet all their other new aquarium mates. I think right now they're doing a little bit of maintenance and burying some of those hoses there. One of the things that Cletus likes to do is come on down on his side and kind of kick up all the sand. He gets it all tumbling up into the water column. Maybe it's just a little mayhem for the sake of fun. But I want to get back to the size of Cletus. He was 38 pounds. Of course, when they first hatch out, they're just a little tiny fry, millimeters long. In that first year or two, they're going to get a good size, probably 5, 10 pounds, 20 pounds or so, because otherwise, you might just be on some other fish's dinner menu. So growing fast at first is important. His growth curve levels off and flattens out as he matures, but Goliath groupers have the potential to get up to about 600 or 700 pounds. Now, he might have missed that growth spurt as a teenager, because when we met him, he was probably already 10, 15 years old or so. So that puts our Cletus here right up there in his 30s. He's a millennial. And it would be really impressive to see him grow to that magnificent size of 600 or 700 pounds, but that could be decades in the making. That gives us a lot of time to plan for his future and well-being too. Well, Cletus is kind of doing his own thing, hanging out over there, but that's once again to emphasize that all this behavior is voluntary. It looks like we're going to probably wrap up this enrichment. We're seeing that Cletus has enjoyed his experience. There you go. We'll wave goodbye to Alyssa and Hannah will be right behind her. They're going to go up topside where their dive tender is up there, ensuring that they have a safe and healthy dive every single day. Here's Cletus coming back for, wait. Why are you going? That wasn't really Cletus. That was me, Eric. He is going to come right up and say hello to all of our guests out there. I want to ensure everyone out in our Tampa Bay area, all the folks that love our animals, that we're providing this daily care to our animals every day now, just as we always have for 25 years and for 25 more years to come, and then some. Our animal care professionals are here every day. We're actually in 2 teams, ensuring that we're keeping safe, because we can't stay at home when our animals are right here at home. So we have, again, a critical care crew that comes in every day to ensure that not just Cletus, but everyone from our lemurs to our sharks, from our turtles to our corals, to even our research is still continuing to help protect our blue planet, that is from restoring coral reefs and protecting turtles. In fact, get on Facebook and check out a couple of turtles that we just sent home. I personally got to help take them all the way back to the East Coast, where they got to swim back out into the Atlantic after several months of rehabilitation at our Center for Conservation. Cletus is going to kind of hang and do his own thing right now. And if you're concerned that the water got a little mixed up or murky from all that sand tossing around, we've got excellent filtration. It'll turn over all the water volume on this several thousand gallons in about an hour. All that goes through a filter similar to what you might have on a swimming pool, except, fun fact, you probably don't pee and poop in your swimming pool, but fish do. And in fact, that's where they eat and do everything. And that's no April Fool's joke. That's just life in an aquarium, or in the ocean for that matter. So we keep that water clean and healthy with great filtration, from ozonation to mechanical filtration to biological filtration, little bacteria munching down on all that tasty waste.
And guys, if you have any questions about Cletus, make sure to drop them in the comments. We can answer your questions live right now. Like Eric said, Cletus has been with us since the very beginning, and yesterday we did celebrate our 25th anniversary. Yesterday in 1995, we opened our doors, and Eric was there, so he can tell us all about our opening and what it was like to be at the aquarium when it opened.
All right, I'm going to remember 25 years ago today, and I'm probably not going to remember that because I'm pretty sure it was the first full night's sleep I got in a long time. I joined the team back in November of 1994. I was one of the very first biologists. Still here, still hanging. Survivor Island it is. And I'm so proud to be part of the Florida Aquarium's quarter century on this planet. I've seen such a change in the entire environment down here, from Channelside to Water Street, and everything that's happened and grown since then. But boy, back then we were hustling hard to get all these animals from all around Florida here to the Florida Aquarium. And I beleagueredly went to the Florida Keys for 6 weeks, that is. And yeah, I can't say that without smiling. I was down there with a team of other biologists and our curators, and we made great friendships, and we got to know Florida in a way that you just can't unless you really live it. We brought animals back here from the coral reefs. We brought animals from Rainbow River. We've got a turtle here, a red-bellied cooter. That was our very first animal to splash into the Florida Aquarium. And you can still see him when you come back, when our doors open again soon. As you walk into the wet ones, you look up at that first habitat and you see all those turtle butts. Look for the red one. That's a red-bellied cooter. He's been with us since he was a young one, and now 25 years later, he is still a happy turtle up there with all those other turtle compadres. Then as you walk through the mangroves, you'll see that the mangrove forest, when I remember it being just little sprouts, little bitty plants, has grown into a true forest. It's unrivaled by anything outside of the wilds of Florida. And it is the home and habitat to generations of fish and birds that have grown and had their families in that entire glass dome. When you're driving through the area, just know that that's a whole environment in itself in there. You'll see other familiar faces from 25 years ago, like our red drum that came in as little fingerlings, and now are some lunkers that I know our fishermen really admire seeing those guys and all their pride. And they'll be with us for years to come too. Then you're starting to realize that fish like Cletus here and others can live for many, many years with great care. There we have also walking through the bays and beaches. You got to meet Cletus. When you make it to the coral reef environment, a panoramic window, look for those big green morays. They weren't so big when we brought them in from the Keys 25 years ago, but they're still with us to this day. They've gone from 3, 4, 5 feet to 6 and 7 feet. They are some true beauties. feel like giant green beans.
Yeah, I think a lot of our guests and fans at home would be surprised to know that fish can live for such a long time, 25 years and counting. A lot of these residents have plenty of years left in them and enjoy a safe and happy home at the aquarium.
And that is a commitment we make to all of our animals here at the Florida Aquarium. We think of their life with us into the future. It's a lifelong commitment, just as if you have a pet at home. You know that animal is going to be a part of your life for its whole life, and it does take real planning and care going into that. In some cases, for generations. I've seen a lot of folks come through our doors at the Florida Aquarium. Some of them that started off years ago have family of their own that are now coming to the aquarium. That's just an honor to welcome all of those Tampa Bay residents and folks from all over the world. And we'll be seeing you again really soon here as we get back to the norm. But life is sort of normal for the animals here at the Florida Aquarium. They miss seeing all your guest faces, so we're interacting with faces like Cletus here even more often now, because don't forget, you can see through this window and they can see out through the window just as well. So they're always watching and observing. If you ever get to come in and see our giant Pacific octopus, they are keen on enjoying and observing their environment. There's a lot of brain activity going on inside that squishy head.
So we had a question if Cletus would get any bigger.
You know, Cletus is still growing, but when we mentioned how he's growing, it is sort of plateaued. When a lot of animals are young, they kind of grow as fast as they can. That's exponential growth. I'm making a hockey stick here. And then it flattens out, because once you get to a size where predation isn't as big of a threat, then you know what? It's kind of time to just chill and enjoy your environment. There's not a lot of predators and threats to a Goliath grouper, even at this size. So where he could grow over decades to come, at least several years to come, he will probably not grow to that maximum size in the next few years or so. And that's just a natural growth curve. But technically, fish as a whole grow their whole life. It's just kind of ease down in those golden years to maybe more of a school zone speed limit, as opposed to that getting onto the highway ramp.
We had another question, does Cletus have 4 nares? And just looking at his nostrils right there, kind of does look like he has 4.
The fact that you know the term nares, I'm going to qualify you as an expert as well, and that's absolutely right. And that's intakes to his olfactory system there, how he can smell even underwater. A very important sense to a lot of animals. For example, sharks really use their sense of smell to help them find prey items, because the water's not always this crystal clear out in the wild, but the sense of smell, that travels pretty much the longest.
And we have another question here. How much does he eat from Nikki?
You would be surprised how much our Goliath grouper eats, or doesn't eat for that matter. In fact, all of our larger predators like Cletus, our Goliath grouper, our sand tiger sharks, our large rays, they eat pretty efficiently, because as you can see it, he's not exactly the jogging type. They're more of a lurker and an ambush predator. So they're very efficient in the energy that they expend. They don't have to heat a body like we do as mammals. They don't have a huge brain to manage as we do as more cognizant beings as well. Oh, I think somebody protests too much. Okay, you have a plenty big brain, Cletus. And nonetheless, though, they can eat about 2% of their body weight a week. Now, it depends on the seasons, or if we watch his body condition and determine maybe he is going through a spurt a little bit, we'll give him a little more food, but it really isn't nearly as much as we would eat as mammals. I can out-eat my sand tiger sharks and my grouper under the table any day.
Evie wants to know, how fast can they swim?
Goliath grouper are not really known for their speed, but just because he's hovering slowly now doesn't mean he can't make a getaway. Put it this way, he's going to swim a lot faster than you or me or Michael Phelps or any other human being in the water. He can probably burst up to little bursts of speed, which come in handy as an ambush predator. If you're just hovering there and your prey comes in close, he's not only going to do a quick flick of his tail to dart forward, but he's going to pop that jaw open really quick and create a vacuum and slurp in his prey. So he doesn't need to chase down prey or swim quickly away from predators at that size. So probably just a few knots or a few miles per hour. Let's say a burst of maybe 5 to 10, which is still way quicker than you and I can go, because he's still far more torpedo shaped than your average bear.
Catherine wants to know, does he have any friends or certain fish that he might hang around with?
That's interesting that you would ask that. Well, folks might think fish can't have friends or fish aren't social, but fish do pay attention to other animals in their surroundings. For example, the spadefish, now that's probably kind of just part of the background to our Goliath grouper. They don't pose a threat to him. They're not necessarily a food source that we consider, but he's certainly aware of them. The same goes for the small chromis fish. In fact, they might even come in to do a little grooming on him. Or for the neon goby, for example, would be a beneficial cleaning station fish that he might encounter. Now, when it comes to other grouper, well, that's where the social boundaries and social distancing has been happening for millennia for Goliath grouper. They are not going to hang out together because they might consider each other either a, not necessarily a threat, but competition. When food resources are important to gather, or you're just looking for a mate, you don't necessarily want somebody else, macking in on your game. So therefore, you're not going to see a couple of Goliath groupers hanging out together and really getting along so much, and wouldn't call them friends in that case. So let's just say maybe frenemies is a way for it. They're aware of each other. There's times when the Goliath grouper need each other. In fact, they have spawning events in the spring where you might see hundreds of Goliath groupers off the east coast of Florida all getting together, kind of spring break style, when it was still spring break, to help spawn out into the ocean. So, responsible groupers and other groupers, as long as it's okay with them. But that's just nature for you. So yeah, the answer to your question is he wouldn't necessarily friend up to other fish so much as he might look at them as predator, as prey, or, tolerable aquarium mates. But I will emphasize this. I challenge you to find any animal at the Florida Aquarium that's all by themselves in a habitat. And that's why these are homes and habitats and not just merely boxes of water. There is always stimuli in observing the other fish and animals that are in an environment, even with something like a giant octopus that would not tolerate another octopus in their space. But sea stars and anemones all replicate a wild environment and all create stimulus and enrichment, which is what we're here to talk about today in the first place.
So Caroline wants to know, are groupers aggressive?
Aggressive and groupers. All right, that's not a term I would use to describe groupers or really any of the animals in the ocean. That's a very human emotion. That's a decision like aggressive drivers. We know that's not by accident. However, a Goliath grouper can be forceful when he needs to, when he's hungry. If you are a lobster, you might not want to be on the other end of this big mouth because that's one of their favorite things to ambush and prey upon. As it gets murky and darker at night, at dusk, they might explore out from their habitat and then lurk on up to a lobster who's maybe not paying so much attention, and then shoop, into that mouth goes a lobster, and they can crunch it right on down. And that is one of their favorite prey items. And other smaller fish in the same sense. But as aggression goes, he's not going to shove you out of the way just for being in his lane. Really, again, that's more of a human trait, even when it comes to sharks or turtles, or I don't think I've ever seen an aggressive coral, but there you have it.
And we have a question from Ashley. How do we feed Cletus?
All right, feeding time for Cletus is interesting. That's where the target comes in at times too. When we first want to target condition an animal, we might put this new object into the water. It could be an orange disc like we saw before. It might be a square of plastic with black stripes on it. We might want to make those targets all different depending on the individual. One for Cletus, one for Flip, our turtle, our green turtle in the reef, our green sea turtle, or a different pattern for each moray eel or each shark, and I could go on and on. But that target is something they may approach out of curiosity at first, and part of that teaching, those baby steps method, is as soon as they get close, then the food is offered, or if they just don't even look at it at all that day, we're going to have lunch anyway as planned. But if we can introduce this new signal, this new target into the game, now we can feed over here or there, where we can make it easier to give our animal, for example, a health exam. Well, we feed him about every other day throughout the week. And again, shimmy, shimmy. Then he'd say, I would eat more than that. That's what that shimmy might be. But we do feed him with feeding tongs from the surface, and it goes a lot better than just tossing the food into the water. Sure, he might eat it, but it's easier to control the amounts because we don't want overweight or underweight animals. We want them to eat effectively and efficiently and have a healthy diet. And then we can offer that food, for example, to our tongs, where our Goliath grouper Cletus will approach the tongs. We can feed him that amount, and that way I can ensure he may get vitamin supplements, for example. You know, when you freeze food, you got to bump up the vitamin D and some of the other vitamins in there. So we have supplements that are perfect for fish and all types, sharks and turtles, etc. And then we can ensure he gets the right amount of food. And we also build a relationship with animals like Cletus. He comes to know us as those folks that bring you food and sand baths and bubble baths and all kinds of great experiences.
So Nikki wants to know why they keep their mouths open.
Our Goliath grouper keeps his mouth open because that's how he breathes. All right, he may be a mouth breather, and you can see it happening right there as water is inhaled and then exhaled through the gills. So into the mouth, and then notice how the lips kind of come down, the tissue, create a little resistance as the water is thrust out over the gills. Just as we would inhale into our moist lungs, where our lungs, our alveoli, are going to pull in all that fantastic oxygen, which, by the way, thank you coral reefs and healthy oceans for about half the oxygen that we breathe every day. Forests too, not leaving you out. And that's why the mouth remains open, so that he can continue to breathe in and out. He's not going to breathe in through his nose. That's strictly for olfactory or for smelling. They're separated, whereas we can breathe in and out of our nose just fine.
Alrighty guys, well thank you so much for watching, and thank you to Eric for helping narrate this awesome enrichment dive for us.
Fantastic. Hey, thank you to CIBC as well for sponsoring C-SPAN. That's SEA-SPAN, no copyright infringement. We really appreciate you joining us every day, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. for C-SPAN, let you get the words out. And also go to our webpage, Facebook, Instagram, to check out all the happenings here at the Florida Aquarium. We're going to keep you in touch with all the animals you love. I can't wait to see you back soon.